Everybody, this is Sheets, and I'm going to be going over the slate for this weekend's MMA card. And last weekend was a colossal train wreck from a administrative perspective. I mean, all these fights got canceled and scheduled and canceled and put back up, whatever it is. Our actual takes were pretty strong. We had the Jason Witt, like a 6,800 DK guy. We had some good selections. Just it was pretty chaotic slate. So today we're going to go through this, and I thought about it, and I'm not going to go into a great detail with respect to MMA projections in general. I was going to do that. I was going to do a kind of like a supplemental part of this, analyzing the differences between median, mean projections and discussing uniqueness with respect to building lineups in general. I'm going to do that as a separate video, I think. And I am going to just stick to the regular slate breakdown for this particular one. Hopefully, I can bring up some of these points along the way, but I'm going to do something a little more in depth as far as that goes a little bit later. So it is a pretty weak card from a DraftKings perspective with respect to what we look for, that being fights that rate to finish in the first round, or at least rate fights that are big favorites to finish in general. And what else do we look for if we're not going to find a finish? We're also looking for, guys that project well or girls that project well, because usually they're really good wrestlers and grapplers, because you get a lot of takedown points, you get a lot of control time points and things like that. And then in the very rare situations, you'll also get a really high volume striker that, even though he might not win by finish, he'll do enough damage from a volume perspective to project well. So I guess we should start by, we will go through like these fights and talk about which fights are worth targeting. And there's several of them that are, for me, just complete fade. So we'll deal with that right away. So the Aldo Munoz fight, I'm not going to have a share of either. You have a combination of a terrible inside the distance prop. It's a 190 favorite to go to decision, and none of these guys project well, meaning that you don't have high volume strikers or big time wrestlers. So that fight's going to be a full fade. Likewise, the Angela Hill Tisha Torres fight, and for whatever reason, Angela Hill is getting 25% ownership, and then I don't quite get. Maybe at 7,500, people are looking for a good underdog, but they're just much better underdogs, especially with respect to upside, than Angela Hill. So likewise, this fight is probably better than a pick'em, at least. Yeah, I mean, 3-1 to go to a decision with very little, volume upside or anything like that. So that fight's going to be a full fade for me. Kenny and Sonia Dong. On another slate, maybe I would take a sliver, but not really. I mean, it's, again, 170 favorites, not go to decision, and neither of these guys have that kind of volume or wrestling upside to overcome that, I think, with respect to winning a GPP. So I'm going to be fading that. Then the Jessica Penne, Carolina, how we pronounce that name, similar thing. Nothing good. No good inside the distance prop. It's going to be 3-1 to go to decision, and there's no real grappling upside for either one to really to speak of. So the rest of the fights I want to talk about, and the one that just did not quite make it for me was Miles Johns versus Anderson dos Santos. If there were a fight I was on the outside looking in, it would be this one. Again, the inside the distance prop is extremely poor, 160 to go to the decision. And I think that there's might be just enough upside from either of these guys to maybe sneak into a lineup or two, depending on how many I play. But I don't think they're going to quite get there for me. Okay. So let's talk about these others. First, you have Munoz against Janny Simmons, and Jamie Simmons. And this one, although so we have an inside the distance prop, which is pretty good, -150 you'd have to pay for it, doesn't to go to decision. And Munoz also has a quite amount of takedown upside. So Munoz is a premier play on this slate. You have one of the better inside the distance props, probably the second best inside the distance prop on the whole slate, plus the grappling upside, plus the 3-1 favorite or whatever it is. The good win equity. So I think that Johnny Munoz is a premier play, and he's going to be owned as a result, probably like 30%. And I do like him a lot. I do not have a lot of interest in the Simmons side of this. You always do have to look for underdogs to kind of play. I just have I think I have better ideas for underdogs. Like, for example, I would, even though I'm not really targeting that Santos fight, I prefer Santos as a punt as opposed to Simmons, just because I think Santos does at least have some volume and some finishing upside, where I'm really not, I don't think Jamie Simmons has much of a shot. Munoz is a very, very strong play. So if I had to have you guess which has the lowest or the highest inside the distance prop, well, there's one fight we're going to get to later that fits that bill, but tied with this Munoz fight for whatever reason is this Gatto Leonardo fight. This Melissa Gatto Leonardo fight, you never see this where a women's fight like this has such a strong inside the distance prop, and it's like a 150 favorite you'd have to lay for a decision here, and I honestly don't exactly get why. Neither of these girls project particularly well, which means that there's not too much grappling upside or finishing upside really. But that inside the distance prop is sort of difficult to ignore. And you have Leonardo at 7,400 on DraftKings. So I think I'm going to have to respect Vegas just a little bit and have a little bit of both of these fighters. It's either that or just bet the over on nitrogen, which I actually, you know what, maybe I should do that. Maybe I'll do both. Maybe I'll bet the over on nitrogen and then play these girls in DFS. Because I don't think that the winner of this fight is going to make an optimal if it does not go to if it does not finish. So again, it's enough. Vegas is good enough that I am going to respect it somewhat, and I'm going to have a little bit of both of these girls. All right, Mannell Cop against Odie Osborne. So here we have an inside the distance prop of about, it's not what you would expect. It actually is favored to go to a decision, and I think that if I polled, a lot of the actual DFS players, they would think something else. It feels like a fight that's kind of supposed to finish, but Vegas is really not agreeing. And the other thing what's really weird about this fight is that Cop in successive fights has really disappointed. I'm not saying with results, because look, he's had some tough fights, but with respect to the volume he throws out, it's really he's not a very active type of fighter, it seems. So what I think might happen is Osborne maybe might get some steam because he's 7,100. I am actually going to be a little more under on this fight than you would think. Again, not that Vegas is the end all be all, but I do respect that the inside the distance prop is not as strong as I would have imagined. So if both these guys are going to be owned, which they will, Cop I have at 27%. Osborne might end up being, a pretty high owned underdog, maybe 25% and up. I might be under on these guys. I mean, I actually made the mistake of watching the Osborne fights, his last fights, and he's not that good. I don't know if he's going to even get a finish if he wins. So for me, I much prefer, for example, Munoz to Mannell Cop. And I don't know, I got this weird feeling I don't want to play much of Odie Osborne here. I think Cop is supposed to be very good, but it's maybe he's just disappointed with respect to volume. Maybe he's just a more methodical type of fighter. And if that's the case at 9,100, I mean, if you don't get a finish at 9,100, you have issues as far as DraftKings go, unless you have that type of volume and grappling upside, which I don't think Cop or Cape is. I don't think he fits. All right, so Menifield Herman. I mean, this is the matchup. I mean, you have an actual almost a pick 'em to finish inside of 1.5 rounds. Big favorites to not go the distance. Ed Herman's 40. Alonzo Menifield is very, very aggressive, and he's going to go for that first round KO or finish or whatever it is. And I know people are saying that, oh, if he doesn't get it in that first round, he's going to run out of gas. And I don't know, man. I just think that he's kind of a lock. And you know what? If he doesn't get it in the first round, I mean, who's to say that Ed Herman at 40's got a great gas tank also? So if he doesn't get it in the first round, I think he gets it in the second round. And I don't know. I mean, Ed Herman's going to be, I mean, he's only 7K. I guess you can make the case that at only 10% ownership, I mean, how often is he going to finish Menifield? I mean, he's not going to make the optimal if he make the optimal if he gets the win at 7,100. I mean, maybe, but it's going to be so tough for him to win. I mean, he's facing so much physically in this spot that for me, it's just Menifield or nothing here. It's probably going to be Menifield. I mean, I'm probably going to try to find a way to get both Menifield and what's his name, Munoz in my lineups. Rodriguez Morales, again, talked about this, not a great inside the distance prop, nothing else particularly intriguing about it. So Fiziev, Bobby Green. The inside the distance prop is not great, but Fiziev is just really, really good. He is an incredible striker. He's gonna probably pick Bobby Green apart. And the only question is gonna be, if he doesn't finish him in, let's say, the first round, is he gonna do enough damage over 3 rounds to score enough points at 9,300 or whatever he is, which is actually, what is his price? 9,300. I mean, the answer is probably not. I mean, if this goes to his decision, 9,300 probably is not going to get paid off. But it might, you know. So I do put Fiziev as kind of below Munoz and Menifield with respect to GPPs, but he's certainly very safe. I think he's going to win. And what I will say is that Bobby Green, I'm hearing a couple of people talk about how maybe he'll go for takedowns, maybe, you know, he fights hard, and maybe he's kind of a good underdog. I'm just not going to do it. I have respect for Fiziev's youth, his striking, his technique, and I just don't see it. So for me, it's Fiziev or nothing over there, and I think Fiziev's a fine play. Kenny, Sonia Don, we talked about. All right, so we're now down to the two of the real key fights, and one of them is Vicente Luque against Michael Chiesa. So here we spoke briefly about the inside the distance prop as being okay, like about pick'em, but what's the deal is that Michael Chiesa is his path to victory is both of these fighters' path to victory is what we want, right? Neither of these fighters is looking for a decision or is rating to win in the decision, except, and we're getting there, for Chiesa. So like Chiesa, let's start with him. He's only 7,600, and if he wins, that's awesome. But he is a takedown guy. He's going to be going for all the takedowns because he can't stand and strike with Luque. So not only does he have good win equity, but if he does win, he also is going to get a shit ton of points, okay? And he doesn't need a finish to do it. He can go to decision and get all these takedowns and score 100 points without getting a decision. I will also like to say that if Luque wins, and let's just say it does go to decision, I think Chiesa, this could be one of those funny fights where Chiesa might actually be in the optimal even with a loss. If he gets like a bunch of takedowns, but then this loses, it could be one of those weird fights where Chiesa actually might outscore Luque. Now, with that said, Luque is the type of guy who wants to go for a knockout, but if he doesn't get it and it does go to a decision, and for whatever reason Luque does get the decision, Chiesa still might score more. So I think Chiesa is kind of an elite play here. Now, with that said, he could get knocked out in the first round. He could go for takedowns or whatever. It wouldn't work out, but I do think that Chiesa is probably an elite play. And additionally, I do like Luque as well. I'm going to respect the inside the distance prop and that he is the favorite. So I do think he has first round KO upside. So I'm going to play some of him. But I think this is a really key fight. I think you want to make sure you get this one. And then the main event, which has quite a bit of a variance to it, and then also quite a bit of safety to it. The safety part of it is the Ciryl Gane side. I mean, he's a 3-1 favorite, and he's probably going to win, right? You have that 5 rounds main event floor, and he's the highest favorite on the slate. So the issues is number one, he doesn't go for takedowns that much, so doesn't have that type of upside if he doesn't get a finish. Second of all, I mean, he's probably going to, well, you could argue that he might try to keep this at range because, Derrick Lewis does have some one-punch finishing upside. So maybe Ciryl Gane would be just kind of try to pick him apart and whatever it is. And then it'll beg the question is, if can he win by decision and make the optimal at 9,400? I actually think there's a chance he can. He might just need maybe one takedown or two to get that done, but I do think that Gane could make the optimal if the fight does not finish. I would actually also think that Gane might score more points if it does go to decision than if he say finishes him in say the 4th round, because I think you're going to want all those extra rounds of striking. I think you're going to want all 5 rounds of Gane if you don't get that first round knockout, which I do think is possible. So what do you do with Derrick Lewis? So Derrick Lewis is 6,800, and he's a 3-1 underdog. But the thing is, what that means is that he's 25% to win. And if he wins, it is going to be by KO. And if he does win by KO, he will be in the optimal. So, I mean, just extremely likely. And I'm staring at ownership, and I see that he is about 20%. So you do the math. It does seem as though you should be playing some Derrick Lewis. Given the realization that 75% of the time you're just gonna that lineup is just going to lose, because the 25% of the time that guy wins, it is going to be extremely lucrative for you. So for me, I'm probably going to get 100% of the fight. I actually would like to say that if there were lineups where I faded this fight, I'd be more inclined to probably fade the Gane side, because I can make the case that if Gane wins, he's not in the optimal. Can't make that case really for Lewis. I am probably going 100%, by the way, on that fight, but it is definitely a math play to play Derrick Lewis. All right, I guess that's pretty much all I have on this. And again, I will do another video where I talk about more MMA DFS theory, but I just wanted to get a good slate breakdown up for you guys. All right, that's it. Good luck, and let's get it.